Welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We know how time poor everybody is, and it's really heartwarming that you've all come out on a Wednesday evening to be with us tonight. We're going to be sharing quite a little bit of information with you. Obviously we've all enjoyed a drink and some canapes, and there's more food coming. The bar's open, so feel free to do that. The restrooms are to the right there as well. So I also want to thank our wonderful team. They've been working extremely hard. Real estate's been a little bit more challenging this year, and they're working overtime tonight, and we thank you, our wonderful team, and they're all looking forward to connecting with all of our valued clients, all of you, so feel free to have a chat to them at any time. Some of the things we're going to be covering tonight, we're going to have Joe talking about all things rental. He's going to talk about some new legislative changes that are coming in the rental space. We've got Angelo Gutierrez, who's one of our sales directors, who's going to be talking about what it's like at the coalface in sales at the moment, and with some insights there. We've got Taz Demos, our accountant extraordinaire, to talk about self-managed super funds, and he's a guy that if you ever want to have a chat about tax, he knows everything in that space, so he's a very good man to connect with. And our MC for this evening, very special guest tonight, is Mr. Andrew Morello. For those that don't know Andrew, he is the very first winner of the Apprentice Australia in 2009 at the tender age of 23. Since then, he's still, now what are you now, 24? Since then, he has forged a very prominent career. He's a real estate investor, he's a speaker, he's an author, he's a philanthropist, he's climbed mountains in Borneo for charity, he's done the Kokoda Trail for his charity, and his many charitable pursuits, and he's a very good human being. Not only is he a good businessman, but a wonderful human being, and that's why he's here tonight to entertain us as our MC. So without further ado, I introduce you to Andrew Morello. Thank you.
Pretty much done my speech for me. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that, Matty. Guys, first of all, welcome to this evening. I think this is the meaning to life. Don't we agree? The meaning to life is the people we meet and what we create with them, right? And obviously, these two gentlemen and obviously the rest of their team and their wonderful life and partners and business partners and the people that have supported tonight. I think truly that's what makes one, human beings great, but more importantly, it's what makes Australia great. And it is a great turnout on a Wednesday night, so you should be very, very proud of yourselves for making the effort mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and being here physically to actually absorb great information, but at the same time, just as a bit of a thank you for you guys being a great support for the business. Thank you, obviously, to the team and obviously the company for having me. It's a great honour. I was very, very privileged to meet the two gentlemen, was it about, what, 8 years, is it 7 or 8 years ago now? All right, about 7 or 8 years ago at an Inspired Growth Summit, which is for property managers, and I think we connected straight away, and probably you can tell, like, we'll cut from the same cloth, I think I told them, so it's certainly a great honour and a privilege to come down here and be a part of it. Even though I had to bring my passport to get across the Spit Bridge. They didn't want to let me in. They're like, we don't let people in from that side of the bridge when I got here, which is fantastic. Look, I'm not going to go into, we do have a bit of quite an impactful night, and tonight is all about you guys as well, so there's going to be opportunities for you guys to ask questions, there's going to be opportunities for you guys to interact with the speakers too. My job as a facilitator initially will be to bring the plethora of amazing speakers that have got great advice for you, and certainly tonight's all about just giving you lots of information, giving you lots of value, so that way you can make better decisions going into the market and the changes that we've had. Obviously coming off the back of COVID and now going into a slightly, what I like to call an evolving economic period that we're going through, I think that's the smart move. I think the good operators, and I've been very blessed and privileged to have had mentors like the likes of John McGrath and Mark Burris and Jerry Harvey, and if you look at those people that are doing very, very well in life, they're all doing what you're doing now, which is being proactive and actually getting out there and absorbing great information so you can make better decisions. So a big round of applause for you guys, first of all, for talk about. So obviously, initially to get us off the ranks, we do have the great man, Mr. Joe Lima, licensed estate agent since 1995, 23 years of experience, over 1,000 properties, overseeing a team. Ladies and gentlemen, I think a number of the team are at the back there. But I think both of these gentlemen embody what real estate is all about. And you know, it was interesting, I did catch up with Mark Boris something recently, and he reminded me, because you'll see in my little presentation later, I talk about property, but I also talk about my life, because I think it's important to understand that as things happen in life, good, bad or ugly, they all happen for a reason. And we live in the greatest country in the world, the land of opportunity that is Australia. And I think the number one thing you should hang your hat on is your reputation. And the company Doyle Spillane, and also the people that represent it, including these gentlemen up here and also the team around them, certainly have a great reputation. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. That's the actual truth of it. So I'm a big believer. These gentlemen and the team that are going to be speaking tonight, please give them the time of day. If you've got any questions, they are going to hang around later on. We're going to do a bit of a Q&A if need be, but otherwise they're going to hang around afterwards and have a couple of drinks with you and some food and have a bit of a chat and see if there's anything that you need help with. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like to bring up the great man, Mr. Joe Lima.
Welcome. It's great to see so many familiar faces. We don't often get to meet in person, so I know myself personally, I enjoy sort of meeting people in person, so it's good. Sometimes we just have a voice at the other end of the phone and we don't often get to see the person, so you know, this is one of the reasons that we like to put this stuff on for you. We've got our service providers here tonight, so thank you to the guys for coming along. Again, like Andrew said, you know, we put ourselves in a position where we refer people or we recommend people, and we wouldn't recommend them if they weren't doing the right thing and looking after our clients. So for us, that's really important. We have Alessandro from Avalon Painting. Ale, thank you. My eyesight's not very good. Taz, obviously we've got Taz. Jonathan from Catalyst Advisors. They've just opened up in Dee Why on the corner of Pittwater Road and Oaks Avenue, so Jonathan can assist you with all things finance. Sandy, drip dry showers and all the beaches tiling, I think, yeah. Again, Sandy does a great job sealing showers without minimum fuss, so he does a great job for us. Florizon, I don't think Zaid's here tonight, but that's okay. Sammy from Frostbite Air Conditioning is here with us tonight, so anyone that needs air conditioning, speak to Sam. The mold doctor, so we've got the mold doctor, and that's, we're probably coming into peak season now, where everyone starts to get sort of mold issues, so pop along and have a look at their stuff. They've also donated a dehumidifier tonight that's going to be raffled, so I know the last person that won that last time still tells me about it every time we speak, that what a great prize it was, so it's great. Anthony from Performance Plumbing is here somewhere. Anthony. Anthony also assists us with renovating kitchens and bathrooms as well, so does a great service he provides. Who we got? Brad from Property Insurance Plus. He looks a little bit different, but he used to be one of our property managers many years ago, but he aged a lot since then. Property management is supposed to age you, but it was the opposite for Brad, kept him young. But anyway, he's over there. And Carlo from Wit Services, many of you have already met or come across Carlo. Again, does some great work for us as well. And Ryan, yeah, REO. Did I miss him? Yeah. And Ryan from REO Electrical is somewhere. Yep. And Ryan jumps in and does all our smoke alarm compliance as well. So again, that's a big thing that he does for us and helps us out. And in saying that, everyone on that list, we're very grateful to have working with us. I speak to people every day, and the biggest complaint is they can never get trades. Everyone on that list will do whatever it takes to sort of get to and assist our landlords or our properties and our tenants, and we very much appreciate it. Possible upcoming changes to legislation. Okay, so we rentals and landlords, tenants seem to be the flavour of the month, probably flavour of the last 3 months. And every time you pick up a newspaper, you still read newspapers, but see something online, it's all about rentals. It's all about, you know, landlords. It's all about tenants. So there are some changes to the legislation that are coming, and for us to sort of dig a bit deeper into that, we've just gone and we look at Victoria and Queensland where a lot of these legislation is already in place. So, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in New South Wales. The thing with legislation is that they don't need to ask anyone. It just comes into play pretty much straight away. And as the first one that came into play on the 17th of December was rent bidding. So again, I didn't think it was a massive problem, but obviously it seemed to be out there. The biggest issue with sort of rent bidding was that with properties being hard to come by, they perceive that, especially agents, and this legislation was aimed at agents specifically. So if you're a landlord, you're a private landlord, you can rent bid and do whatever you like, but as an agent, we're not allowed to do that. So, they felt that agents were sort of contributing to the issues with, the tenant market or the tenancy sort of shortage, and therefore this legislation came in overnight. And basically what it means is that we have to advertise a property with a fixed price. So, and that's okay because most of the time we do that anyway. But, over the years we sometimes use, if we were struggling to move something, we might put office over or offers or contact agent. So that's now illegal to do. So you can only have a fixed price. We can't entertain any dialogue when it comes to rent. So, people will come to us and go, what do we need to pay to get this place? We basically can't entertain that dialogue. So for us, it's just that there's your application, whatever figure you put there is what figure we will provide to the owner. The other thing is that we also can't go back and forth. So if the owner says, I want $10 more, we can't go back and ask that question. So it is what it is. But look, for us, that's never been a massive problem because I think most of our landlords know that as long as we're around the rent that we perceive is a fair market rent, then most of our landlords are happy with that. Yes, people will come and offer more. Sometimes there's red flags that appear when someone does that. But at the moment, I know it's happening a lot because of the shortage of rentals sort of thing. So, so we can't entertain any dialogue. We can't advertise range. We can't ask people to make higher offers, and it doesn't apply if if the landlord's advertising privately. Those laws don't apply. So, but that one, it's been since the 17th of December. Hasn't really been an issue for us, and I guess I can't see it being a major issue moving forward. So I think a lot of these legislations, when they're first spoken about, everyone sort of panics and thinks, oh wow, how are we going to get through this? But it's the same as the last time we had, our last investor night was in 2020, just before COVID, and there was a whole list of new legislation came out and we thought, wow, how are we going to navigate through this? It came in, we had COVID, we had all these other issues, but the legislation wasn't an issue, and we still moved forward with that. The purpose of the changes are that the rental vacancy rates are dropping and rents increasing, and there have been reports that tenants have been urged by real estate agents to offer higher rental amounts to secure a property. We would never do that. So the next one we go to is rental increases, and again, I guess, and this came in 2020, it hasn't been an issue, but it's now becoming an issue because the rents are moving. So, a couple of years ago, if you put the rent up once every 12 months, that was quite normal. You'd have a 2 to 3% increase and everyone was happy. Now, obviously, because the rents are moving so quickly and there's a lot of demand, that's creating issues. So sometimes, they're looking at the rent and what we got 6 months ago has moved beyond that sort of thing. But while they're on a lease, we can't increase the rent. So if we've given someone a 12-month lease, that's the rent that's locked in. The only way you can do an increase during a lease is if you negotiate that from day one, which is a really difficult thing to do. It's like you're saying to someone, oh look, the rent's going to be $600 a week for the next 8 months, and then after that it's going to be $650. So, you're trying to foresee what's going to happen in the future, and a lot of tenants will kick back on that, which is understandable. On a periodic agreement, and again, this is going to become relevant shortly when potentially there's other legislation comes in place around leases, but with regards to a periodic agreement, you can only increase it once every 12 months. So if it's on a continuing period and you increase it in April 2023, the next increase cannot happen to April 2024. possible changes. So this is, I think this is going to have the biggest impact. And again, when you look at it, it is a little bit scary, but like everything else, we need to sort of navigate through it. So what's happened in Victoria and Queensland is potentially, if your tenant is just on a continuing a periodic agreement, you can't just ask them to move out for no reason in 90 days. So they have got prescribed reasons, and those prescribed reasons are along the lines of, you know, you're demolishing the place, you have to do substantial renovations, a member of your family that currently resides under the same roof as you needs the property. So it's not going to be as simple as just saying, oh, look, you know what, I don't know, we're going to do something else with the property and, you know, we're just going to give you notice. So potentially that, it's already in place in those states, so I think we're going to get the same. There are slight tweaks to the Queensland one and the Victorian one, but I think that's potentially what we're going to have. And I noticed that, obviously I don't know if we can do much about it, with both major parties in the election this weekend have got their catch clause or something to do with rentals, not giving tenants notice, rent capping, rent bidding and all that sort of stuff. So again, I think they're both jumping on the bandwagon there. But potentially what will happen is, what you can do in Victoria is that, well, in Victoria you can't, but in Queensland you can. If you give a tenant a 12-month lease, you can give them notice to move out at the end of that 12-month. And it's just the end of fixed term. So you can do that in Queensland. You can do that to some extent in Victoria, but you still need to have a prescribed reason. So the biggest thing that I'm looking at this and saying, okay, well, what happens here? Having a tenant on a lease is going to be crucial. So the days are gone where you're just going to let a lease run just on a continuing basis, because, and not, look, some people may not need the property back, it's just going to be a long-term rental, and that's okay. But you can still sell it. Like, one of the prescribed reasons is selling it, renovating substantially, you have a family member that needs it. And obviously if the tenant defaults in any way, you can still give them notice and go through that process. It's more to do with no reasons. You know, you can't just say, I don't like the tenant, so I'm going to ask them to leave. And you know, that doesn't happen that much with us. You know, because I guess, yeah, our landlords are sort of pretty switched on and you know, they attract sort of the right tenants. But yeah, that's probably the biggest issue that I can foresee moving forward. And it's not really an issue, it's just our mindset where, you know, people were happy to let people continue on. Now you're going to have to look at that and say, okay, well, if you won't sign the lease, because some tenants won't want to sign a new lease. This is where it becomes, and I get what the government's trying to do, but with these legislations, but this is where it becomes an issue, because the tenant may say to you, I don't want to sign a new lease. And then you're going to have to say, well, then you have to move out. So they're going to have to move out anyway. So, you know, there's not going to be that latitude where you think, okay, we'll just let you stay on for another couple of months, because then potentially won't be able to get them out if you need them out, sort of thing. So, yeah, so that's probably the biggest change that potentially could affect the way we sort of, you know, do business moving forward. Pets is a big thing as well. Look, it's still, as a landlord can still say no to pets in New South Wales. In Queensland and Victoria, you can't. So the strata can't say no anymore. So, you know, years ago the strata used to say, oh, no pets, and we'd say, okay, no pets allowed. Now the strata can't even say that. They can't refuse a tenant from having a pet or an owner from having a pet. So if you buy a property, you can't be told that you're not allowed to have a pet by the strata. They can't refuse you. But as a landlord, you can say, no, I don't want pets at the moment. So, you know, that's everyone's prerogative. Look, we love pets. I've got 2 little dogs that do my head in, but that's all right. But again, it's just different. Like, there's a lot of different issues that come in. It's not just repairs. It's barking, it's noise, potentially. You know, if your neighbour's getting upset about a dog barking, that can potentially come back on you as a landlord if your tenant's pet is not controlled, sort of thing. So there's different issues that come with it. But at the moment, we can still say no to pets. Or our landlords can still say no to pets, even though strata can't. And again, we probably get 10 calls a week where people say, oh, you're not allowed to say that, but because they perceive that the legislation has changed. It has for strata, but not for agents, or not for landlords, yeah. But again, in Queensland and Victoria, you can't say that anymore. In Victoria, I think it is, in Victoria, if the tenant has no pet when they move in, but then get a pet, you can actually stop that. So if you've said no, they didn't have a pet when they started, and they get a pet when they move in, you can actually say no. In Queensland, you can't. You've got 14 days to respond, and if you don't respond, it's just automatically the pet moves in, sort of thing. So that's a couple of the tweaks there for us that potentially could come up. Look, the other stuff at the moment, we went through this in 2020 where compliance was a big thing, minimum standard was a big thing, but again, you freak out when you sort of read the fine print, but then in reality, in the workings of it all, most properties are going to meet minimum standards. If they don't, well, we're not managing it. In Victoria and Queensland, I think now they have compulsory annual gas checks and electrical safety checks. So like we have Ryan who goes and does the smoke alarm checks every year, and again, that still is an issue for us because most of the properties we manage are apartments, and Strata do these compliance checks on smoke alarms. But what Strata do does not cover a landlord as part of the rental legislation. So I went to a property today and sure enough there was no smoke alarm. I said to the lady, it was an elderly lady who had to move out because she had a stroke and actually had to knock down the door to get her out because they couldn't get in. But there's no smoke alarm in there. And yet Strata's probably going there every year saying there's a smoke alarm, but there's no smoke alarm there. So things like that. Whether it comes to gas and electrical, look, I think anything like that is not a bad thing because I think all of us would not want an issue to happen. I know even last Friday we had a report that an oven had exploded in DY, and we went there and it wasn't what it was made out to be. But we get anxious about stuff like that. You don't want something to happen on our watch, sort of thing. So if stuff like that does come out, look, I know it costs money, and sometimes that can be a deterrent for people. But I think if it allows you to sleep better at night and know that you spent $99 to get a smoke alarm check, well then I think that's money well spent, sort of thing. So. But that's the majority of it at the moment. Potentially could change all the time, but I think things that they bring in sometimes have a good effect. And the most disappointing thing at the moment is that I feel that our landlords are carrying the weight of interest rate rises and legislation pushes, and we seem to be at the forefront of everything bad that's happening with the housing. I think our landlords do the government's job by providing housing, and that should be rewarded in some way, whether it's tax cuts or whatever. I don't know, it seems pretty simple for me, but I'm not real smart, so I don't know, there's obviously smarter people at play there, but I think something needs to be done to allow our landlords and investors to get into the market and provide more accommodation. But I'll be here all night, so if you have any questions around any of that information, we've also got our property management team all here and happy to take questions. Chris is smiling there at me saying yes, come and speak to me, but feel free to source us out and have a chat. Thank you.
You can just tell like a property manager that's just passionate about property management. Can you start that? We get another big round of applause. I think, and Joe, they say the two things you shouldn't talk about are politics and religion, but so I totally agree. As a landlord myself, and as the majority of my portfolio in Victoria, I had these legislation changes a lot earlier than you guys did, but they are all legitimising property management, but also as well, landlord ownership, right? So, both sides of Parliament are certainly, got a vested interest in making sure, as landlords, that you are preparing for your future. You're in a position where you can retire comfortably and own your own home. They're the two mandates that are actually there by both of the political parties. So, obviously, property investment and owning properties that are through property management. And Joe made a very valid point. When you've got a great property manager, these problems very rarely come up. Very rarely come up. Obviously, I've been around the property industry. Literally, our family came on a boat in 1956 and got into the property industry, and I've been around actual real estate, done over 1,000 transactions myself, and our family have got a big property management business down in Melbourne. And if you've got a great property manager, then these problems don't happen. The problems, the arguments with rents and things of that nature don't come about. But it is always good to understand certain changes that are happening within the legislation, but certainly the evolution that's happening with being a property owner. And one of the things I'm going to speak about later is actually when you actually own real estate, you actually are actually in the business of real estate. That's the misconception a lot of people have. They go, I'm a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, but it's very, very important to understand that you're actually in the business of real estate and understanding the changes that happen when you own a business, which is owning investment property. So well done, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, next up we've got Angelo and Matt. They're going to give you the market, sales, investor update. Ladies and gentlemen, we all want to know what's happening. Who wants to know what's happening in the market right now? Who wants to know? That's what they all came for. They came for you two. Joe, I'm sorry, I apologize. I came for these two. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got two absolute superstars here when it comes to understanding market knowledge. Both very renowned within the local community and certainly top performers in their industry. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Matt and Angelo.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. So the question we always get asked is, how is the market? Well, we actually had COVID and we had probably a 30...
How's the market?
Oh, the market. Thanks for asking. So the market's been up and down. So it went up substantially during COVID, as we all know. And on the Northern Beaches, we were one of the most highest performing regions. It seemed like everyone wanted to come to the beaches because of its beauty, because of the fact that people didn't have to travel into the city every day to go to work. They wanted lifestyle, they wanted a bigger block of land, they wanted views, they wanted the sea breezes and the sun and the vibrancy that comes from being on the Northern Beaches. And with that, during that very strange time, the market did go up approximately between 30 and 35%, making the Northern Beaches the most highest performing region in the whole of Greater Sydney. And obviously from May this year, we've had 10 interest rate rises on the trot. And with that, that's put a little bit of fear into the market. Confidence has come down a little bit, as it should. Borrowing capacity of buyers has obviously diminished. And instead of buyers during the COVID periods being worried about missing out and then putting their hand up at auctions and spending to get the right lifestyle opportunity, what's started to happen is people are becoming a little bit more fearful, not fearful, but a little bit more nervous. They're listening to the media that's talking the market down a little bit. And what's happening is with the 10 interest rate rises, instead of fear of missing out, people are a bit fearful of paying too much. Having that said, with a 30 to 35% rise in the market during the COVID years, the market's probably come back 15% of that. So we are still ahead, and the beaches is still a very, very popular place and is still performing quite well. What we do have to consider though, when we are putting our properties on the market, if we choose to, whether it be an investment property or it being your own principal place of residence, is we're very big at the moment on presenting the properties beautifully. We've got Vanessa from Stylist here that does a wonderful job with her styling, and she'd be happy to speak to anyone about that. So we believe presentation is key. Marketing is very important as well. Having a skillful negotiator is extremely important at the moment, whether you go down the road of an auction or a private treaty. It's about trying to maximise the opportunities for the owner. And at the moment, even though there's a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of nervousness, we're still finding if you price a property well, market it well, present it well, and you have very good, clear energy and focus on the end goal, that results are still quite good. Our office has sold in the last couple of months a good 20 properties. Some of them haven't been frequented by 10 and 15 registrations at the auctions like they were, but we're still managing to get 1, 2 or 3 key buyers and either structuring deals at auction or before auction. So is it a good time to sell at the moment? Well, if you're looking at selling in the next year or so, we're not anticipating the market to go up greatly in the near future, but we're also feeling that we're coming to the end of the real estate increase cycle, and with that we're feeling like we're maybe getting towards the bottom of the market, because we don't feel like there's going to be a lot of interest rate rises. We're not economic predictors, and I certainly didn't predict the market to go up 30 or 35% during COVID, and I'm certainly not predicting it to go down or up too much now, but if I was a betting man, my prediction is it's going to be stable, normal, supply and demand, equilibrium is going to be okay, and it's going to be a fair and reasonable time. If you're a seller and you've got a compelling reason to do it, it's not a bad time. And if you're a buyer, should you buy now or should you wait? I'm going to pass on to Angelo for that. What are your thoughts if you're a buyer at the moment, Angelo? Should you buy or should you wait? Is the market going to get lower? Is it going to go up? What are your thoughts?
Look, I think the overall is to look at the last 7 years of how the property market has travelled. And even at the moment, with what's happened in the last 2 years, where the market has gone up that 30-odd% and pulled back that 15%, as long as you're not looking at, and property's not meant to be where you could, I guess, buy and look at maybe, okay, what am I going to get tomorrow? It is, we like to look at it as a long-term gain. And if you do hold property long-term, it's generally been pretty good. Now, in regards to when is the time to buy, I'm finding, and we have noticed, and the market changes so quickly to the stage where even at open homes, every week we're noticing numbers sometimes, whether it's they're dropping and we're not getting the attendances through. If a property's priced right, we are getting at the moment a lot of people through. I think just alone today, we just even had a chat in our office where we had in excess of 15 to 20 people through every single one of our properties today, where we normally don't see that on a Wednesday for a while. So answering to Matt's question, or what Matt was saying, I'm feeling like buyers are finding that it's coming to the end of the market where it's going to start picking up a little bit at the moment. And the good properties, we're finding people are paying that a little bit more because there's more competition out there. So things are going for a lot more than what we're experiencing. So I would be jumping in at the moment. If the bank's lending you money at the moment and you can borrow, I think the time is to at least start investing.
Yeah, and the question is, do you put the money into your principal place of residence or do you buy another investment property? I've always found that putting your money into your own principal place of residence and having that beautiful home by the sea and investing and renovating, that's a wonderful thing. It's obviously there's no capital gain when you sell it, and you can hold it, and it has memories, and it's a wonderful thing. But I also find that I don't know, like with super and shares, and it's probably because I've been a real estate agent for 30 years, I just feel a little bit more comfortable with the bricks and mortar. I know that real estate sometimes doesn't always go up all the time, but over the long term, as Angelo says, it's a pretty strong, stable investment, and if you can hold on long term, it normally does quite well for you. We're not here to sell you any properties tonight, by the way. We're just sort of giving you our snapshot of the market. So, in short, it's an okay market. It's not going to go booming, and it's not going to drop too much. And I think on the Northern Beaches, we're going to be all right long term. We're here to have a drink with you later on, and we can have individual discussions about any other possibilities or any discussions around any real estate specifically later on. And
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's we're around.
Thanks. We'll hand back to Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I've been privy to sitting down and have some good discussions with experts like these two gentlemen, but also right across the east coast of Australia right now. And I think they've hit the nail on the head. The reality is, I think it's normalised, which is, I think, a positive. We all love when we buy a property and 18 months later, we hear it's gone up by 20%, and we all think it's great. But the reality is, to a good, stable economy, to avoid things like inflation, what we want to do is be really, really cautious around, obviously, the fact that when things boom, they generally bust. So, bull and bear markets, right? And so the biggest thing that's probably keeping up the Australian economy right now is there's a lack of stock. So I'm sure you gentlemen are seeing, like we're seeing in the Melbourne market as well, and also in the Queensland market, in good areas like the Northern Beaches. Like, the reality is, this is what we call a blue chip recession-proof area that you guys are in. You're not buying speculative stuff, keeping away from, obviously, and I'm not here to deter anyone from any particular investment ideas, but staying away from things like mining, and staying away from areas that are predicated their boom based on a particular infrastructure change. Like, the reality is, good, solid, quality blue chip investments like on the Northern Beaches will always do well. It's a medium to long-term strategy. If you're buying real estate for the short to medium term, you probably should go to the casino instead. That's the reality. That's a joke, guys. You're allowed to laugh at that. That is not financial advice. Don't go to the casino. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're very, very blessed tonight and lucky to have a specialist here, certainly from the accounting background. The great man, Mr. Tas Dimos. He's from BDH Leaders accounting firm. They're experts in not just tax and self-managed super funds as well. So just so you understand the difference between sort of super and self-managed super funds, I know Matt mentioned before, he doesn't necessarily like super as soon as the guy's about to talk about self-managed super funds. There is a fundamental difference between putting your money in a direct super account versus a self-managed super fund as well. I have property in my self-managed super fund. My self-managed super fund is actually called Morello's Living the Dream Super Fund, by the way. It legitimately is. That's what I name. You get to name it whatever you want, so I had to have a bit of fun with it. So it's my Morello's Living the Dream Super Fund. Also, for those of you in the room that are business developer, property developers as well. Tas is also expert in property development taxation too. So if you are doing any developments or looking to do developments in the future, please feel free to have a chat to him about that. And then last but not least, if you're a business owner too, their firms certainly are experts in that too. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk us through the accounting side of property and certainly the best way to structure things and the best way to get the best advice, can we get a big round of applause for Tas Dimos, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you, Andrew. That was a pretty big wrap. So I better give you guys what these guys have promised I'd deliver. I just wanted to talk to you guys broadly about superannuation and borrowing through your superannuation fund and how it works, and try to keep it as simple as I possibly can. We're a bunch of accountants. We're located in Sydney. Whilst we do accounting, we do other stuff as well. And we try to, like I said, keep things simple. So the test of that is going to be my presentation. Before we talk about borrowing through your superannuation fund to buy a property, the question is, should you set up a self-managed super fund? Okay? And we will sit there and say to clients, look, unless you got about $400,000 to $500,000 in super between you and your partner, it's probably not worth doing so. Okay, until you get to that level, I wouldn't bother setting up a self-managed super fund because of the costs, because of the time that it takes to administer all those sorts of things. If you can, and what I've got to also mention about a self-managed super fund, you can have up to 4 people in that superannuation fund, okay? So you might want to pull it with your in-laws or, I mean, I've got my self-managed super fund and I have that pulled with my sister and my brother-in-law, so there's 4 of us in that. And that allows us to obviously access, and we do have property through there, better properties and have greater deposits to do what we want to do. So the advantages are having a self-managed super fund. You have control and flexibility over what you want to do in your super fund. Now, if you've got a significant amount of money in your super fund, it can be cheaper to actually have it and manage it yourself. Usually, if you've got it in a retail fund, those retail investment houses like AMP and Colonial First State and Credit Suisse, if they're going to be around soon, will usually charge about 1% of funds under management. The general cost of a superannuation fund, there's guys out there that'll do it for $1,000 and manage the administration side of it for about $1,000 a year. If you want a bit more advice and things like that, it'll probably cost you from about $2,500 upwards. And it usually sort of caps out at, the $10,000 mark for those that have got millions of dollars in superannuation. As I mentioned before, greater access to investment options, and it's also a really good tool for estate planning, which I won't go into, but I haven't got much time to talk. The disadvantages are it's time consuming. You've got to manage it. You've got to take control of receiving all the investment information, collating it, giving it to your accountant. They've got to get it audited, so there's a bit of compliance involved. As a trustee, every member of the superannuation fund needs to be a trustee of that superannuation fund. So they're responsible for the activities, the investments, everything to do with the superannuation fund. Obviously, if you want to set up your own superannuation fund and there's a large pool of money, you're going to have to sort of seek investment advice from a financial planner of some sort, and they usually charge a bit of money for that. There might be legal advice and other tax advice that you might need to do that and to manage that properly. Borrowing through a self-managed super fund. The reason why you would borrow to borrow through a self-managed super fund is to leverage, obviously. And over a period of time, it's all about building up the value of what you have in your superannuation fund so you can retire comfortably. And borrowing allows you to do that, allows you to leverage up. Instead of buying a $400,000 asset, you can now go and buy $1 million asset and pay that back over a period of time. You're not limited to just borrowing for, say, a residential property, a unit. You can buy farmland, you can buy land, you can land bank a development site. You cannot develop through a superannuation fund, but it allows you to do that sort of stuff. You can buy your factory, your office suite through it, and we'll talk about that in a second. The lender who lends you the money doesn't have to be a financial institution. There are rules around what they must charge, and it's got to be commercial. And obviously, whatever money you contribute into the superannuation fund, part of your SGC or the contributions that you make to your super fund, can go towards paying off that loan and that property. To buy a property, you must satisfy some rules when buying a property through a self-managed super fund. The sole purpose test must be met, and that sole purpose test not only revolves around and relates to a property, but every investment that you undertake through a self-managed super fund, the sole purpose of it must be for your retirement. Okay? You can't buy a property from a related party, so you can't buy a property from your brother or your sister or a family member. You can't have a family member live in that property, and it can't be rented to a family member. I have a lot of clients that say to me, "Oh, can I buy a holiday house through my self-managed super fund?" The answer is yes, you can, but you can't go using it, nor can your family members go using it. The exception to that rule is commercial properties, office suites, industrial suites, things like that. You can lease it. So you run your business and you want to buy an office suite for it, you can do that. You can borrow through your super fund to do that. And if, for example, I've done a lot of restructuring with clients where they personally own, I've got one client at the moment, she runs a business in Stanmore, she owns a property in her own name. I'm restructuring that, it's a commercial property, so that she can buy it through her super fund. But what we need to do in circumstances like that is obviously get it done, get a commercial valuation done, and always do things at market rates, okay? So we need to be able to prove to the tax office, if they come looking, that, you know what, we're doing this at an arm's length. How does this work? I'll just talk you through it very quickly. So what we have, if we need to set up a self-managed super fund, this is the components that we sort of set up, okay? We want to go to the bank and we've identified a property. What we do is go to a financial institution and we say we want to borrow X amount of money, and that financial institution gives it to us, okay? We acquire the property, but we must do so under a separate trustee or a custodian, and there must be a bare trust between them. These are all legal things that, again, going back to a slide that I had a few before, to set this up, you really need to sort of get some advice and make sure it's done properly. Because if you don't buy the property in the right name, it's going to take a lot to unwind it, and it's going to be quite costly to do it properly, okay? So you must seek advice in doing this. And obviously, when you're talking about trustees, custodians, bare trusts, this costs money to set up, okay? Something like this wouldn't cost you less than about $4,000 or $5,000 to do, okay? So you really need to think about it. You need to make sure that this is right for you. Can I get the next slide, please? So as I said, higher costs. One thing I will say about these loans too, at the moment mortgage rates for a residential property sit probably between, what, 5.5%. Jonathan can talk to us about that. These loans, you can't go into ANZ, the Commonwealth Bank and get these loans. They don't really want, the majors don't really want to do these sorts of loans. There's a few players out there and they're charging about 7 to 7.5%. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan. Oh, there you go, 5.99.
Who was that?
Latrobe. Yeah, so you've got to be careful too in doing your numbers and your metrics that you take into consideration the fact that some of these loans can be more costly. Obviously, you need to make sure that the rent, your contributions into the superannuation fund are able to pay off the repayments and make it all work. In the event of someone's death or disability, what happens? Have you got a provision? Have you got life insurance for people in the superannuation fund? These are all things that you need to talk to your advisor about to make sure that this can work. And obviously, one major thing that you cannot do, you can't buy a rundown property, borrow against it, and then go and fix it up. You can't even so much as renovate a kitchen or a bathroom if you've borrowed against a property. You can't do substantial renovations to it. Once you've paid it off, you can. But until then, you're not allowed to touch it. Like I said, disclaimer, go and see your financial advisor. Happy to chat to you guys on an individual basis. There's a lot to this, so it's really important that you get it right and don't stuff it up at the outset. But it is a very, it's a really great structure to build some wealth. And yeah, I don't know if we want to do questions now or leave it till later.
Do you want to
do any questions now?
Awesome, we got time for a couple of questions, definitely, yeah. First of all, can I just go a big round of applause for Taz? That was a great presentation. As someone who's navigated that SMSF landscape for a long time, because a lot of people didn't even know about it. That's the funny part, and this is what it's all about being here tonight, so well done on that. We've got a question from the lady here. I'll pass you the microphone, madam. Bear with me 1 second. We'll get that from the camera as well. Feel free to stand up if you want.
Really interesting, thank you. Hi, people. I was just wondering, you said it's not really worth doing unless you got between you for 400 to 500,000. But what if you're an individual? What if you're single? Do you think that's still
It depends on how much you have. You can do it as an individual, absolutely. Absolutely, you can do it as an individual. It really depends on how much you have in your current superannuation fund as to whether or not you think about a strategy like this. In addition to that, you need to think about, obviously, a loan like that or undertaking an investment like that is probably got a 10-year horizon by the time you pay it back. So you've got to think about, obviously, what your retirement plans are, your age, and work out whether or not that's the right strategy for you. Because if you're likely to retire in 5 years' time and you do one of these strategies, invariably what's going to have to happen is you're going to have to sell a property to draw down a pension on your super fund.
Yeah, and so that's where the strategy.
So you've really got to look at what your personal circumstances are and what your objectives are.
Yeah, because I think if you're selling, and you're exempt from capital gains tax, you can put 300,000 towards this.
Your principal place of residence, absolutely. You've got to satisfy certain conditions, but you're right. And that's a way of bolstering your superannuation fund. It's the empty nesters concession that they've got, yes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So if you're kind of thinking, like to help family members out and you're wanting to go build towards that, and you still do it as a single, but basically the amounts remain the same because the other concepts are the same.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Right. Thanks very much. Let's get a big round of applause for that question. Nice, great question. We have another question. Yep, over here, one moment.
Can I just ask you, if I'm looking at buying a storage facility for from a self-managed super, and I've got the super money already for it, because it's not a large amount, can I can my self-managed super fund lease that out to my business?
Yes, it can.
In a commercial?
Absolutely. It's got to be done. You're going to have to prove. You can't just pay $100 into the super fund. It's got to be commercial, and equally it can't be excessive either. Okay? You can't, if it's worth $500 a week, you've got to pay $500 a week.
Good news.
Actually, ironically, what the misconception that a lot of people have, and Taz, I'm sure you can shed some light on this, it actually was the reason why originally it was created for. Like, the self-managed super fund scheme was originally created for people that own their own business, that want to lease a investment that they purchase back to themselves. It was actually the original mandate of the SMSF legislation. But a lot of people, obviously it's been misconstrued over the years and been abused. And you talked about the holiday houses. I'm from Melbourne, right? So originally I live in Rosebank now, but there's so many Italians. I've got houses in Sorrento,
Dramana
and they got in so much trouble for it because, they went and bought themselves these holiday houses and their self-managed super fund. They went, oh, perfect. I can go take $2 million from my super fund and go buy waterfront property in Rosebud and use it whenever I like. You get in a lot of trouble.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. And so it was just funny before you were saying, people would ask you,
They do.
Can I buy a holiday house? Of course you can. You're just not allowed to use it, that's all. We've got question 1 and question 2, and then we'll move on.
Hi, Taz.
Hi.
Would you be able to explain the empty nester rule that the state is?
Okay, okay, if you sell a property, if you've got a residential property that you live in and you want to downsize, you've got to, I think it's the ages, if you're over the age of 60 and you're selling a property and downsizing into something smaller, you can put up to $300,000 into superannuation. Sorry?
But if you...
Out of the sale.
Is that a one-off?
It's a one-off.
Lifetime
Yeah.
thing, so it's a bring forward. Okay.
No, it's not. It's got nothing to do with the bring forward.
Okay.
It's over and above.
Over and above, so you can bring forward 300,000.
No, you
Well,
can put through. It's 500, is it? No, it's gone up to 500. There you go.
Okay. So if you've already done one, you can still do the other.
Yes, you can put your 100,000. So there's two different types of contributions you can make into a superannuation fund. Those that you can claim a tax deduction for, and those that you can't. And there's caps on those. The ones that you claim a tax deduction for, you can put up to 27,500 in. And the ones that you don't claim a tax deduction for, you can put in 110,000 a year. And what you're talking about is, well, I want to put in 330,000, and that's the bring forward. So that means that you can do 330,000. You're not putting anything else until that 3-year period finishes.
So once the 3-year period...
But if you sell your house within that period of time, you can put that in as well.
Thank you.
I think that's what you're asking. Yeah.
Question, big round of applause for that, ladies and gentlemen. Last question of the night.
My first one is, can you sell the investment property prior to your retirement?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the second one, can you use the equity out of the first investment to buy a second investment property under yourself?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
No.
But if you had enough super to buy 2 properties...
If you had enough cash to
Yes.
put deposits on too, you can do that.
Yeah.
What you've got to be careful in those circumstances is some of the financial institutions actually want you to make sure you've got some cash left aside for contingencies in case you can't make the repayments, in case tenants aren't there, all that sort of stuff. So you might have $1 million in your superannuation fund and think, I'm going to put 500 on one and 500 on another. You've got to pay the stamp duty, the legals. And like I said, some of these guys want you to have a bit of a buffer in your super fund to be able to make contingencies if and when they do arise. Okay? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we get a big round of applause for Taz? You're going to stick around here after the show.
Sure.
Wonderful, fantastic. Yeah, it's a show. This is a show. I didn't realise. Guys, who's getting some good information for tonight? Put up your hand. Yep, great, fantastic. I can see how engaged you are. I can see plenty of people taking lots of notes, which is fantastic as well. So, guys, I'm your last speak for the night, so don't worry. I'm between you and the bar, I know, but it's okay. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. So, Look, the mandate for tonight, when I spoke to the team at Doyle Spillane, they were like, we want you to obviously give a little bit of insights around, and I tried to lib some of my insights, and we've had great speakers, so hopefully you've enjoyed my commentary in between. So certainly it's my honour and my privilege to be able to provide that. To give you a little bit of background from my real estate background, because I'll show you a little quick video about my business background in a moment. So obviously, family came here on a boat in 1956 with my insured and empty suitcase to Port Melbourne Pier, and we got straight into the property game. So I was very, very lucky. My father was never the guy that was going to go and give us real estate or give us money for real estate, but he certainly led a really good path for us as an immigrant to Australia from Italy, that, you know, this was a great investment asset for us to be in. You know, and I grew up, you know, going to clean service stations and factories and getting houses ready for rent and for sale and things of that nature. So I think I earned my stripes and I did my, let's call it my PhD in real estate through my father. I would call it my father and mother. I should recognise her amazing as well, because obviously she was a big supporter of it. But tonight what we're going to do is I'm going to go through, show you a quick video, a little bit about my background for those of you who don't know me that well. So what I'll do is give you a little 2-minute video. Then off the back of that, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you some of my insights re property and things that have worked for me. And obviously I'll stick around afterwards. I'll take some further questions after that as well. And then what I'm going to do is share a little bit with you my story. So obviously Matt and Joe have been privy to see my story many a time over the years. But for those of you who haven't had a chance to, I hope it's slightly entertaining. If it's not, I apologise in advance, but I'm sure I'll find something to keep you entertained in the meantime as well. So I've got a little video just so you get a bit of an understanding of where my background comes from. What if I told you that together we could change the world and your dreams, our dreams, could become a reality? What I'm very passionate about is becoming a world-class entrepreneur. Where that entrepreneurial mindset comes from is growing up in small business and around entrepreneurs, taking the driven mindset that an entrepreneur needs to have and implementing that into a larger organisation to provide a world-class experience at an entrepreneurial level. In 2009, I had the amazing privilege of participating in the first ever Australian Apprentice. Out of thousands of applicants, I made the top 12, and then I went on and ended up winning the first Australian Apprentice with Mark Burris.
And of course won the first Apprentice in 2009, I think the very first one, the only non-celebrity apprentice. He becomes a celebrity. He understands property markets not only instinctively, but intrinsically.
I love affirmations, and my favourite affirmation is living the dream. Living the dream isn't just a mindset, it's actually a way of life, and I live it every single day. In the corporate and business world, there's so many people unhappy with what they're doing. If they were to shift their mindset, lift their confidence, it would make them more fulfilled in their lives. It would make them a better father, a better husband, a better wife, a better life partner, but most of all, a better human being. Through the amazing experiences I've had and the extraordinary people that I've met, it's helped me be enlightened to my true life's purpose, to help other people realise that they're the captain of their own fate and the master of their own destiny. One of my core values is philanthropy and charity. I sit on the board for Seed Foundation for Indigenous Education and completed the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea last year and raised over $200,000. I'm also a founding member of Project Gen Z, where we go over to Cambodia and work with inspirational and incredible Geraldine Cox with Sunrise Village, Cambodia. The children there have changed my life, given me an amazing perspective, and given me a chance to really give back to the world around me. Today, I'm an entrepreneurial leader, a world-class entrepreneur, a global speaker, and a world changer. But I'll never forget that I'm just a simple boy from Moonee Ponds trying to get ahead in life. This is my story so far. This is what I'm doing to change the world. But the question is, what are you going to do? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Morello. So that's the 2-minute version of my life. I still have that sailor hat if anyone's asking. Yeah, there we go. Look, I really I think more than ever, when we have these sorts of discussions tonight, it is really, really important to understand, if you're taking notes, write down, what is my why you? And before I finish tonight, and if I forget, Maddie, please remind me to share with you my why you. I've shared it with you a number of times, but what is your why you? And I'm going to share it with you at the end of the night before I finish up. I think whenever you're making decisions, whether it's in your self-managed super fund or to buy investment properties or to sell the family home and downsize and put money into your super, I think it's really, really important to understand why we do things, right? Like I think, actually having the more deep, discussion with ourselves or with our wife or our husband or our partner or with us as individuals is really, really crucial and important. One of the biggest challenges I see with Australians is that we haven't seen two things. We haven't seen a Great War and we haven't seen a Great Depression. Do you agree? So the problem with that, I'm sure some of you have in the room, I apologise, I'm sure some of you may have, but the problem with that is the Great War we have now is a spiritual war. It's a conundrum that we have with ourselves, an argument that we're having with ourselves constantly. We've got these beautiful children that we've given birth to and raised, and we're worried, correct, is you're given a little, they've never seen anything like that, so they have no perspective on life. I've been very, very privileged and lucky. I've gone and rescued children from child prostitution, begging circles in Cambodia. Where kids where families have 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl, and they sell the daughter off so they can have enough money to feed the 4 boys, because that's their superannuation fund. That's the superannuation fund in a place like Cambodia. I've been to Smoky Mountain in the Philippines, where there's 1 million people living in slums. Same problem, right? And it's like most Australians, especially, I'm not being rude, I live in the eastern suburbs, so I'm not saying I'm any different to you guys, but the reality is, especially when you live in the northern beaches of the eastern suburbs, we're very insulated, aren't we? And especially our children are very insulated. And there's a real opportunity to understand why are we sitting down and having a chat about real estate? Why are we having a chat around our future? Why are we looking at investing into real estate? Why are we looking at selling one of our investment properties? The reason why you're doing that is far greater than dollars and cents. Put up your hand if you agree. Far greater if you agree. I reckon I want like ear to elbow if you agree. Ear to elbow. Because the reality is, you wouldn't be here on your Wednesday night. Listen, thank you, madam. 2 hands up. I like you even better now. But the reality is, you wouldn't be here if you didn't actually believe in actually planning for your future and actually providing for the future for your family. Right? That's a beautiful thing that you're doing. So, what have I got? I've got a couple little extra little Morello tips. I think the guys tonight have done an amazing job. I don't think you need too much more from me, so I won't bore you with too much detail. And I'll get to more of the, I call it edutaining stuff. It's education and entertainment. Guys, that's a joke. I'm really struggling to get a bit of a laugh out of you guys. I'm generally quite funny, guys. I'm generally quite funny. So first up, knowing your lending parameters, right? So I don't know what your name is, but everybody seems to be pointing you when they talk about lending. What's your name? Jonathan, fantastic. I've got a friend of mine as well at the front here who's from my state bank and also used to be a broker for Yellow Brick Road. Make sure you go and, you're a broker? Yeah, make sure you speak to a broker. The banks are great and they underpin they're not great actually, let's be honest. Like I'm lying there, right? So they're not great. It's being filmed. I'm trying to be politically correct here. I'm friends with half the senior executives. But the reality is, speak to a broker. They will find you the right deal for you, right? So I didn't even know that Latrobe's doing 5.99 on SMSF, so thank you. There we go. So he's let me know. So I think the brokers definitely have a bit of insight. And I think step 1 for you, if tonight has piqued any interest at all, write down on your notes there, know your lending parameters, know what you can and can't do. There are some real good opportunities for principal place of residences right now, like getting some really good terms and some really good fixed rates in for principal place of residences. So obviously the banks have become less excited about investment as they used to, but there are a number of second tier and third tier lenders that are actually become quite competitive. And this is the market generally for them where they're trying to take market share. So take advantage of that, right? Take advantage of Latrobe being one of them, trying to obviously steal the SMSF market off Westpac and so forth.
Can I jump in and say one thing?
Please.
The biggest part, especially for investors, at the moment, when you go into a major bank,
Maybe stand up so everyone can hear.
when you go into a major bank for borrowing capacity, they're adding 3% to your actual repayment.
Yep.
Where you've got your second tier lenders or non-bank lenders, but they're assessing your existing debt at actual payment.
Mm.
There could be borrowing capacity different between $200,000 to $1 million, depending on your existing debt. So it just definitely helps to not just go to your bank.
Fantastic, great advice there, right? Great advice, number one. Number two, yeah, like go and speak to someone. It doesn't cost anything to go speak to a broker, right? So you've got $0 to go speak to a broker. Just go pick their brain. I'm sure you'd have to have a coffee with anyone in the room. Like you know, Blake, I'm sure has had to have a coffee with anyone in the room. Like the reality is, like, just speak to the broker. Like my broker, I speak to literally all the time. Literally all the like. I'm just like, can I get any more money? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, I'll call you next week. So like the reality is, just always understand your lending parameters, and especially if you are looking at diversifying your portfolio between your principal place. So the three that you want to write down if you're taking notes, so obviously looking at your existing facility for your principal place of residence, looking at your facility for your investment loans, because obviously they have a different serviceability calculator based on your investment loans and your LVR, which is your debt to purchase ratio for those of you who don't have investment properties. So obviously that's important to look at. And then last but not least, look at who's doing something sexy in self-managed super funds. And if it's Latrobe right now, like have a look at it. Like it might be, it's not for everybody. And I'm not a financial planner, that's my disclaimer. Like I'm not a financial planner, but I've done well out of the choices that I've made. But I've been very, very blessed and lucky to have some very good advice around me. Right, so there's an interesting story before we go on to the next point. Like, does anyone know the story of Henry Ford got sued? Henry Ford got sued, you know, back in the early 1900s he sued the New York Times for defamation. They wrote this whole article about him that, like, you know, he was, for those, I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but he was actually an anti-Semite, and he wrote some very bad things in publications around the Jewish people, and so he got in trouble for that. And they said he was ignorant and that he was, you know, not a good person. So I'm sorry if you're a Ford person over a Hollywood person, I'm going to rule this slightly for you. But when he got sued, when he sued the New York Times for writing this article, he got a defense lawyer that actually came up with a really good defense. So what she did was the defense lawyer for the New York Times got Henry Ford up on stage and said, tell me, in the Battle of 1836 in the Civil War in the United States, who was the general at the time? And he's like, I don't know. What's the square root of, this is the richest man in the world at the time. The richest man in the world. So it's like putting Elon Musk on trial for defamation. You know, if he was suing for someone for defamations, this is the defense lawyer for the New York Times. And they said, tell me, what's the square root of 1064? I don't know. And asked him a series of 10 questions. The defense lawyer was trying to prove a point. She was trying to prove a point that he was trying to prove a point back then. There was a female defense lawyer that supported him, because we don't want to, you know, not acknowledge the amazing women that were a part of this. So he actually said, well, Your Honour, I've proven to the jury that Henry Ford, the richest man in the world right now, is suing us for defamation, for calling him ignorant and dumb, for the comments he made about Jewish people and about other things in life. And the lawyer turned around and said, I've proven that it is not defamation, because defamation is when you've written something untrue in a publication. And he said, I've proven that he is dumb and that he is ignorant. And Henry Ford turned around and he said something pretty profound. I don't agree with some of his opinions in life, but he said something very profound, which I've taken always in my life, and I read this in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, if you want to write this down. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Very, very good book to read. And he said, Your Honour, Your Honour, I am the smartest man in the room. And everybody's shocked in the court, obviously, at this point. What do you mean you're the smartest man in the room? He said, I'm the smartest man in the room because 24/7, 365 days of the year, I can press a button on my desk and somebody's going to come in and answer that question for me. Now, do I agree with all these philosophies in life? No, I do not. But do I agree with that? Yes, I do. I'm a simple boy from Moonee Ponds. My parents came here on a boat with one shoe and an empty suitcase. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but have I gotten the best advice in the room? 100%. Like I'm blessed to be privileged to be surrounded by some of the smartest people. Tonight you've heard from experts in their field in sales, experts in their field property management, experts in their field in tax. Like I look at that and go, well, that's how Andrew Morello got where he's gotten, and that's how Andrew Morello's going to get to where he's going to go. So that is the methodology behind it. So go and speak to your broker, go and ask the questions. It doesn't cost you anything to ask the questions. Put up your hand if you agree. Great, fantastic, beautiful, we're on the same page. Researching a property. So very, very importantly, like obviously I'm a fan of buying. I only own real estate in the eastern suburbs and in Moonee Ponds. I'm not going to lie to you, like Moonee Valley, I should say, so northwestern Melbourne, and it's because I know it. I'm not saying there aren't further opportunities. I've got friends that have done really well in the sort of western corridor of Melbourne now. Like I had a chance to buy a two side-by-side site in Blacktown 13 years ago for, I don't know, like 400 grand, and I was like, I probably should have bought it. But like the reality is, like I like to buy where I know. But if you are going to buy outside of an area that you know, please do your research. Couple of quick little tips if you're writing this down. Go and make friends with real estate agents. I'm sure you guys would be more than happy to have a coffee with anyone all the time, right? It kills me. I train a lot of real estate agents. I get paid to go and speak for real estate agents and train them and get paid lots of money to do that. And it kills me how many real estate agents have coffees with other real estate agents. I'm like, they're not giving you a property to sell, bro. Go and have it with Mrs. Mangles up the street that's going to refer you to properties, right? So certainly feel free to go pick a real estate agent's brain. Do your research. The great thing is, write this down. It's an amazing thing. Write this down, this tool. I promise you it's going to change a lot. It's called the internet. Write down the internet, guys. The internet. Pretty much all the information, maybe he's writing it down. He's typing in, it's like the internet. Yes. So the reality is that you have the internet. All the information that an agent has now, you have. So the agents aren't there to try and swindle you or pull the wool over your eyes. But the reality is the reality, right? Whether you're the landlord, the property owner, or the purchaser, all of the details are there, and you can have a bit of an understanding from that. Next up is understanding the marketplace, right? So there are lots of great opportunities in the market right now. I genuinely believe that. There is a lack of stock in some scenarios. I'm not going to, look, you know what? The reality is, I personally wouldn't be buying any sort of brand new apartments right now. I don't know if you guys have any for sale, but no, you don't, great, fantastic. So I wouldn't be buying any brand new apartments, but Art Decos and period apartment blocks that have very low strata or body corp or whatever you guys call it. The reality is if your body corp is low, there's solid brick, there's 8 in the block, you can't really go wrong, right? They're always going to rent well, right? So that's good stock. Good stock for you to be purchasing and so forth and so forth. But apart from that, and then houses that have land on it. The great thing about the Northern Beaches is a lot of it's established stock. I'm sorry if there's any developers in the room. I'm not recommending to my friends to buy anything brand new off the plan right now. Obviously, who knows what the banks are going to do, the valuers are going to do. I apologise if I've upset anyone. Somebody came and told me off once. They're like, you can't say that. I'm like, well, I can. It's my opinion, right? So there we go. So certainly understanding the marketplace that you're in. Next off is understanding the cost of living. So what's your name, mate? Jonathan. So Jonathan and Blake will both tell you right now the banks look at a thing called a serviceability calculator. They're not sexy at all. They're pretty mean, to tell the honest truth. My financial planner told me I was poor the other day. He didn't say I was poor, he said you're broke. He goes, you're rich in assets, but you're broke. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you're the bottom of the food chain, bro. So what does that mean? He goes, well, you're paying for the mother of your child, you're paying for your child and you live in the eastern suburbs. Let me give you the hot tip. You need to be making about 1.6 million a year to actually have half-decent lifestyle these days before tax. So the reality is understanding what your cost of living is and understanding the things that get looked at on a serviceability calculator. E.g. for anyone who's slightly younger in the room, your Uber Eats account. If you're somebody who doesn't cook and you get Uber Eats every night, they will look at that now. And they go, wait a minute, is this person a good person to lend to? Number 2, things like your subscriptions, Paramount, Netflix, like, it's not even a matter of how expensive it is. What else is there? Alright, so it's not even a matter of how expensive it is, it's more about they're looking at your habits now, they're looking at your habits going, like, are you somebody that just subscribes to everything, never cooks, and just orders everything online? Like, they're looking at that, and they're not going to want to give you money if you're that person. They will look at things like that. Things like dependents. So if you are a young couple in the room and you are looking to have children, like, go get a loan first, because you might even be able to afford the loan once you have the child. But the reality is, once the child is there, like, it's very, very difficult. If you go down to one income, right? If you go down to a single income household, these are the sorts of things they're going to look at. Even if you're on $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, they will still look at these certain things. Your cost of living. Obviously, cost of living has gone up. Inflation has kicked in. There are still opportunities, but just be smart about it, right? Think about things like, don't pull cash out of your bank account at your ATM at 1 o'clock on a Saturday night. But they look at shit like that now. Like, the other thing they're looking at is, like, don't go to a casino. Like, you know, if you go to a casino and pull money out, even if it's like $200, it registers that you pulled it out at a casino. Let's go to the ATM around the corner, guys. Like, seriously. But, like, the reality is they are starting to look at things like that, and they'll get more and more, like, as what they're realising now, and I'm not an economist, but let me explain it to you, because I get to spend a lot of time with a lot of economists. Interest rates will keep going up, right? They probably have capped out now from going up. I think they're probably going to plateau for a bit, but they're going to stay where they are. Keep that in mind. They're going to stay where they are. They're not going to drop them anytime soon. Once upon a time, and these are my economist friends, and Mark Burris himself teaching me this, he said it used to be 9 up, 9 down. 9 up, 9 down. Now we're 10 up, right? Do I think there's going to be more? There might be 1 or 2 more. I don't think there's going to be a lot more. The problem is, the everyday spending has not slowed down. If you go to the CBD at any point, you go to the Manly Wharf at any point on a weekend, Hugo's is full, right? You're not walking out of Hugo's without a $1,000 bill for between 4 of you these days, right? That's the reality. This is the challenge that we got. Now, you might not be somebody in the room that does that. You might be someone in the room that is frugal, that is smart about how you spend your money. But the reality is, the next generation of Australians are not. Our generation, 30 to 40 years old, are not. They would rather go and spend $1,500 at a Hugo's than put it into their mortgage, right? The problem is, it affects everyone economically, right? So what happens is, when interest rates don't get the desired effect, which is to slow down inflation, what they will do is what they've done in the past. 91, 92. .com bust in 2000. I'm not even old enough to remember these things, but I understand economics. I didn't go to university. I read a best-selling book, but I can't even spell, because I researched and I understand how things actually intrinsically work. Mark Burris said that about me. He goes, he used to ask me, he used to be like, how did you not study a degree or a PhD? So how do you know these things? Because what I do is I stop, I pause, I find the smartest person in the room, and I find out the intricacies, right? So let me explain to you what they're going to do to us. They're going to change your lending, what's the lending criteria. So what they're going to do is they're going to realise at some point the 4 majors. The 4 majors will get followed by the mid-tier and third-tier lenders, the second-tier and third-tier lenders. They're going to go, interest rates aren't stopping people from going to Hugo's and spending $1,500. So what they're going to do is they're going to start saying, now, if you've got an Uber account, we're not going to lend to you. Or if they're going to look at how much you spend on Uber. If you've got a Netflix account, Paramount, Stan, whatever the other ones are, they're going to look at those sort of things. So you need to be smarter than that. You need to start thinking, okay, how do I get ahead of that? And they're going to look retrospective. They used to look last 3 months. Now they're looking 6 months. I reckon they're going to start looking 12 months. They're going to start saying, like, what was his or hers or them as a combined couple's spending habits going back 8 months ago? Because they're going to go, well, maybe they just heard Andrew Morello speak, told them little secrets, and they've just stopped going to the casino or going out for $1,500 dinners. So you need to get smarter about that and making sure that your spending history is succinct and in line if you want to be able to take advantage of the market that we're in now. Is that useful? Yes. Great. I'm getting lots of nods. Good. I think I'm doing a good job. Don't worry. All right, things to consider, location, obviously, things I look at is like infrastructure, if you are looking to buy out of the Northern Beaches, I don't think the boys want you to buy out of the Northern Beaches, but if you are, they don't mind. If you are, like, I look at things like, what's the #1 real estate company in the world, guys? No, it's actually McDonald's. Just to let you know, so if you are looking to buy something in an area that's a little bit different, McDonald's is the #1 real estate company in the world. Did you know that? What do I mean if you knew that? What do I mean if you didn't know that? Wow, okay, so McDonald's is a real estate company. It's not a food company, just to let you know, guys. It's called McDonald's Real Estate Enterprises. And they just happen to sell burgers to pay for the property that they're buying. Just to let you know, guys know. So things I look for over the years when I'm advised on investment, McDonald's, Coles, Woolworths, like they're not putting infrastructure in place at these locations unless there is going to be a large population and a population growth. So if you are looking to buy anything out of traditional Northern Beaches real estate, these are some of the things you should keep an eye on. Things to stay away from, mining. Like, we saw Newcastle as a prime example, boomed during the BHP Rio Tinto boom. I think everyone in this room, most of you are old enough to remember that period. And then as soon as Rio Tinto and BHP pulled out, they literally lost 50% of the value of the properties overnight. So don't go chasing waterfalls, stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. God, I really should have got something bigger laugh than that, Joey. Why does everyone laugh more at the other conference that we do? You guys need to loosen up a little bit. You didn't give them enough drinks, that's the problem. Type of property, as I said, I'm personally staying away from anything new right now. If you are going to buy an apartment, because that's all you can get into, or you're looking for your self-managed super fund, buy something that's an existing apartment. Like ideally, in my opinion, like 50s, 60s, 40s, 30s, like Art Deco up to like 70s. Solid brick. No, like I'm not a big fan of cladding and polystyrene, and stuff like that. So just, that's my opinion, but that's my opinion. Try and stick to something that's got land, but obviously if you're buying an investment property, it'll be hard. Rental income, obviously take into consideration. I don't think rents are going down anytime soon. So take into consideration as long as you can afford with the current rental, keep that in mind. And last but not least, the second last, so opportunities that are undervalued. So a big thing here, I think in this market, here's the challenge, I'm going to give you guys a backhanded compliment. Doyle Spillane's the sort of agency you sell through, you don't really buy through. I'm no offense, but it's a reality. You guys are great agents, right? It's just a reality. I know because we've got Jealous Craig down in Melbourne, and I get friends, they ring me, they're like, oh, can your brother sell something? I'm like, no. You do not want to buy from my brother. You do not want to buy from Jealous Craig, because we get really good prices for our vendors. We do, right? That's a reality, right? So unless it's something that's cookie cutter every day, of the mill, and it's there's an apartment there and an apartment there, and that one sold for $868, and then they've got one for sale for, $900. You're like, okay, it's the same price, right? But the reality is, a good agent gets a great price when they sell. You guys get great prices when you sell. That's just what they do, right? So, I look for shit agents. That's what I do. I do. Before you said, what does a good agent do? It's price, marketing, and agent. They're the three reasons why a property will sell well right now. It's priced right, it's presented well, it's marketed well, and you've got a great agent representing it. That's the reality, right? So, and Doyle Spillane, you look at their portfolio, they price it right, they market it well, they present their properties well with good property, spend the $5,000. And if you are selling right now, because there's a good opportunity, get a great agent and fit it out, put some good furniture in there, spend the $5,000. People are like, oh, I don't want to spend $5,000, Matty. I'm like, spend the $5,000, it could be an extra 50 to 100 grand. Do you agree? There you go, right? But I'm sorry, it's a bit of a backhand compliment. You're like, I'm trying to sell these people properties, but no, you're not, that's right. But that's what you want to look at. I look at undervalued properties. A couple of things I look at. Days on market, right? So have a look. So especially if it's a bad agent, it's been days on market for 100, 150 days on market. There's a reason. And they might be friends with the agents. They're not going to take it away from them. The agent's probably not that good. So get in there, make an offer. And you know what the other thing is? Make a real offer. Get a contract, ask for them to send you the contract. I know now it's all on DocuSign and stuff like that, but ask for a fee, just for negotiation purposes, what I do. I get a real life contract sent to me, I print it out, it's going to be officially done on DocuSign at some point. I write the offer, and then I get a check. I've got a checkbook. I've got no money in the checkbook. I'm not going to lie to you. There's nothing in the check account. But I get a check, and I put the check on the top with the deposit number on it, right? So like, let's say I'm buying something for $1 million. I write $1 million, deposit 100,000. I put the check there. If they banked it, I could transfer the money immediately. But like, what I do is I put the check on it, and I say, give this to the owner. Now, a terrible agent doesn't understand, like they don't understand. I say, you give this to the owner, oh, it's nowhere, they want 1.2. Doesn't matter. Drop this offer. By law, you need to do that. So I'm giving you an offer, a written offer, in writing with a check. Here it is, take it to the owner and get it to countersign it for me properly. Now, agents hate when you do this, by the way. They do. But if you're getting a good opportunity, like there's a good opportunity there, like especially if something's undervalued right now, make an offer. Make it, like, you need to have the money to settle on it, so make sure you've spoken to your mortgage broker, because it is a legitimate offer, but I like the physicality of it. What I actually quite like the most is the romance of it. The romance of it. Like actually having a piece of paper. Do you remember, madam, when you used to buy things and there was a piece of paper and you usually signed it with a pen? I hate signing with DocuSign. Who's bought something on DocuSign before? But if you bought a house on DocuSign. So unromantic. I know it's the future, but it's just terrible for me, right? Terrible for me. But yeah, so DocuSign's the future, I know. Once they finalise the deal and you've gone back and forth, then they'll send you a DocuSign document. Do you guys use DocuSign? Yeah. Everyone's using it. I still like the romance though. If I buy something for you, I want you to print it out for me. But get me to come in. And then what I used to do, so I sold over 1,000 properties, guys. Literally over 1,000 properties in my career. And I love nothing more than when you've got a beautiful young couple that bought like a house for you, they bought $1 million plus house, and you knew that they put everything on the line for this, and you'd get them into the office back in the old school days, like 5 years ago, and they'd sign it, and like you'd see like the guy rock up in his like boots with mud on him, and you knew they busted their ass to buy this house, right? And he'd hold your Mont Blanc, and he'd sign it, and he'd be like, man, this is a nice pen. And I'd be like, you know what, bro? You can keep it. And he changed, like, it was like I've just given him this whole experience. Like, it's not, forget about the fact it was a Mont Blanc and that. It's just, it was such a beautiful thing. It was romantic. Now we just send it through. Like, sometimes you don't even meet people anymore, and they're buying a I sold my Bondi beachfront apartment for like nearly $3 million, and the guy did not even see it. He was in Bali. And I was going to lose it, man, because I had so much fun in that apartment. Like, I was like, oh, it was this beautiful Art Deco. It's called the Sunray. I owned the whole bottom floor. I had so many good times. And I was like buying, growing up, getting responsible with my life. I'm like, I'm going to get rid of the waterfront party apartment and go and buy some like legitimate, normal mum and dad real estate. Even though I'm not married and I'm not a dad. I'm a dad, but I'm like, I'm not married. So I was like, but I'm going to go be responsible now. Anyway, sold it. Broke my heart. Like, the guy never even saw the thing. I don't even know if you've seen it yet. Like, I think it's been, like, then COVID happened. So I don't even know if he's even seen this apartment. And I put so much love into that, but you should have seen the renovation. Broke my heart. He sent someone down. Like, he sent someone down with a checkbook, which is just heartbreaking. Cost of doing business, guys. The guys Kaz spoke about earlier, understanding what is the cost of doing business. If you are going to be a property investor, you need to start running spreadsheets. You need to start running a process and a system to actually understand. Write this down. I am now in the business. As soon as you own a first investment property, like a principal place resident and an investment property, you are in the business of real estate. So you need to start treating it like that. Remove your emotion. Mark Burris did a really good post the other day. He talked about how, remove the emotion from your real estate transactions. No, it's different when it's your principal place of residence, but when they're investment properties, if it's not serving you, get rid of it. So to give you an idea, I got rid of a penthouse in Kensington in Melbourne. I bought it because my dad owned the site since 1974. I sold the site, we actually got Burgess Rawson to sell the site as a commercial agent to a real estate, to a developer. The developer built it. I did a little quasi deal. But I said, listen, I'm going to make sure that it's sold to you for X, but I want to get looked after for the penthouse because I think I'm going to go live in it one day. I bought this penthouse, literally I sold it like 5 years ago. I bought it like 15 years ago, and it was worth the same amount of money 10 years after I bought it, right? And I kept on saying to my financial planner from Yellow Brick Road, I kept on saying to my financial planner, Dan Ukraine, I said, I can't sell it. I've done my balls on it. And he goes, you haven't. You're going to get the same money you paid for it. I'm like, I'm like, I've lost money. Body corporate, like a lift, a pool, this crap, all that drama. Like I said, I've lost money on it. He goes, but let me explain something to you. If you offload it, it frees up your serviceability. Frees up my serviceability. So he goes, if you offload that penthouse, you can then go buy real estate that's actually going to serve the purpose that what you're trying to do, which is plan for your future, retire comfortably and own your own home. Make sense? Cost of doing business, guys. Remember that. Don't let your emotion get in the way of making a good decision. How long have I got?
As long as you want.
15? 5? 10? 10. Okay, 10. Guys, was that useful? Put up your hand if that was useful. Okay, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you the 9-minute version of my life. Let me talk you through this, and my story so far. So I was in a lockdown for 246 days. So you remember before I said I was going to finish with my YU, yeah? Who remembers when I said I was going to finish my YU? Yep, great, fantastic. You're going to remind me to do that. So I was in 246 days of lockdown. It was basically Nazi Germany, just to let you guys understand. I went at the front of my mum and dad's house, and somebody would literally, the police would pull you over. And they'd be like, they'd pull up in front of the house. They'd be like, mate, what are you doing outside the house? I'm like, it's like 9:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm like, mate, I'm just, standing at the front of my house. It's like, nah, you got to be inside. Right? And then another cop drove past, like 9 minutes later, and came up to me and said, what are you doing outside your house? I said, you're the same cop. And he goes, no, I'm not. And he gets out of the car and he goes, you're being a smart ass. And I said, mate, we all look the same to me. It's not my fault, right? So, there we go. What happened? So the reason why I stayed at my Melbourne, so I've got a house in Moonee Ponds and a house in Rose Bay. The reason why I stayed at my Moonee Ponds house was because my beautiful mother was passing away from dementia, very sadly. So during COVID, my beautiful mother passed away. So you want to put things into perspective. So a woman had come on a boat with nothing, a very tough childhood, grew up on a farm in Beveridge. If anyone knows what that is, Nick Kelly was born there, just so you know. So my beautiful mother, there we go, we ran a big dementia ball for her in 2019, raised $500,000 for Dementia Australia. It's the biggest donation Dementia Australia's ever had in one go. So the Morello family put on that. And I remember wheeling my mum in on a wheelchair and saying, and she going, where are you taking me? Where are you taking me? And I said, Mum, I put this on for you. And she's like, what are you lying to me for? What are you lying to me for? I said, no, I'm not lying to you. This is literally for you. So we put on a big dementia ball. It was called the Unforgettable Ball. If you want to check it out, follow it on Instagram because we're going to run another one. Unforgettable Ball. That's my mother. So then what happened? Okay, so when we're in lockdown for 8 months, 246 days in Melbourne, this happens. A surprise baby. Correct. There wasn't much to do in Melbourne except for drink wine and have a bit of fun. So while Mum was passing away, I was taking care of Mum, and I had a beautiful son. So, ironically, with a friend of mine that I'd known for 20 years, literally 20 years, we'd never been together, and then we decided, we were in COVID lockdown. We thought Melbourne, the end of the world was about to happen, but this came out of it, so I'm very, very happy. So his name is literally, on his birth certificate, Lion Mane Morello. And for the English teachers in the room, you're probably wondering, that's not spelled correctly. It's L-O-N-M-A-N-E. I know that. It's a double entendre. Lion the main man Morello, Lion the main event Morello. My dad loved it because my mum had passed away at this point. My brother, the Conservative, who owns one of the head directors at Jealous Craig down in Melbourne, he wrote back at 5:55 in the morning when I texted him from the hospital in Sydney, what are you going to put on the birth certificate? I said, Lion Mane Morello. He goes, that's not a real name. You can't call your child that. And I said, oh, I'm pretty sure I can. It's my child. That's my son. And it's really cute. He's like touching my mum there. Like he knows who his nonna is, which is really, really beautiful. So we found out, my mum passed away August 16, 2020. We found out that the mother of my child was pregnant August 19, 2020. So I was like, I don't want to get all woo on you, but I think there was a bit of a transpondence there. He's a very empathetic child. He's 2 now. He looks a lot different today. He has a big mane of curly hair. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that. So he definitely has his mane. Us doing swimming, we do swimming lessons. So one of the main reasons why I've worked hard and put money away for investments, I take him to swimming lessons at Cranbrook on Mondays, I take him to swimming lessons at QT Bondi on Tuesdays, I take him to soccer in Rosebery on Wednesdays, I take him to art classes on Thursdays, and I take him to Spanish on Fridays. Why? Because my father worked 7 days a week for 47 years in service stations, and he missed my Brunswick Zebras games, he missed my Melbourne cricket games. So when you're wondering why are you making these investments into your real estate and planning for your future, setting up your SMSF, these are the reasons why you do it. Oh, there's me. My main brother. Yeah. So my hair's naturally like that, so is his. It's blonde now, it's gold. I don't know whose kid it is. Dad had a triple bypass. That was Christmas after COVID. So the doctor actually said that my dad died from a broken heart. He was dying from a broken heart. He lost his wife after 48 years of marriage. And let me give you the hot tip, guys. Who's the oldest people that have been married in the room? What have I got here? Anyone 40 years? Put up your hand, 40 years? 40 years? Anyone been married 40 years? Those two? 50 years? Anyone 50 years? 45 years? 45, reverse auction, 45, 45. Anyone all 45? How much? 44? Are they the longest? 44? Yep, big round of applause for 44 years. Then my dad, we finally got him out of hospital. Mate, anyway, and the bloke falls, right? So then he broke his knee and his hip. And then he bought a little lion for Lion. That's my little niece, Luna Willow. Yes, we're hippies, Luna Willow and Lion Mane. Yep, so there we go. Then I lost some money. I bought a development site in Melbourne and I lost money during COVID. I panicked. Probably should have held on to it, but I panicked, like a lot of people did. So don't worry, I'm not some invincible guy. And I haven't made if you Google me, I always talk about the success stories, but there's been plenty of failures as well. Then I made some money. I bought another site and I made good money on that. Got it back, which is good. But best of all, we went back, and I was there with you, remember? There was us, Joey. So the best part of it was the fact I got to get back in front of human beings. I'm a people's person, I'm a Piscean, I'm very affectionate. Yes, it was my birthday last week. For me, that was what it was all about, which was good. What do I do in the meantime? I did the Kokoda Trail, as I mentioned. I won't show any more videos, we're running out of time. That's me, I did 147 kilometres through the Papua New Guinea jungle, raised over all up was nearly close to $500,000 for Indigenous education. There's me, walking through the Kokoda. Has anyone done it? It's the worst thing in the world. Let me just tell you now, like you're doing it and you're like, why am I doing this for? You're like, you definitely, it's not fun at all. Just to let you know, day 4 there's a thing called the wall. So if you think you're having a tough life now, just trust me, when you get to the wall, it's like this vertical, and you look up and you feel like you want to kill yourself, literally. And I cried like 19 times, like a child, like I was like bawling my eyes out. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and so forth. But this is one of my true passions, Cambodia. I've got 712 kids across 2 locations, Siem Reap and outside of Phnom Penh. It's in a place called Kandal, because we do rescue the kids from child prostitution and begging circles. So a lot of them have what they call they get tattooed on their wrist. So what we do is we rescue them. We take about an hour out of the city. So obviously the mafia can't find them, who's bought them and so forth. But there's been with some of the kids. That's one of my amazing mentors. I don't just have rich people as my mentors. People like, who else do you spend your time with? Geraldine Cox, Order of Australian Medal winner, lady with the bright red hair. She's on 60 Minutes all the time. She's saved so many people's lives. She's bequeathed me her passport, actually, so I'm looking forward to that. Then I do things to nourish me. I find ways to nourish me. I do Burning Man. I go to Burning Man in the Nevada desert. It's 9 days in the desert. It's not fun either. It looks like lots of fun, but it's not. I do a thing called ceremony. I have a shaman. So I'm always looking to try and find, nourishment mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and most of all, physically as well. So what I'm always trying to do is find ways to actually find actual peace in my life and do the right thing in my life as well, and so forth and so forth. Lessons I've learned to conquer your mountain. The power of stepping outside your comfort zone. Write that down if you're writing things down. Step outside your comfort zone to reach your full potential. Number 2, the power of getting perspective. Number 3, the power of letting go of the outcome. Number 4, the power of embracing the uncertainty of life. There's the 4 there if you want to take a quick photo of that. A few of you taking photos. If you want a copy of the slides anyway, I'll put my email up. You can email me and we'll send you the slides. Last but not least, that's my beautiful son.
Sweet Caroline. Good times there, that feel so good. So good. So good.
Oh. So, guys, in closing, I said to you I'd give you my last little secret, right? My last little secret is this. I have a thing called Morello's 30-second answer at 3 a.m, right? And now this is how it works. If I came to your home at 3 o'clock in the morning, where do you live, matey? Where? Cool. What street? Can't know what number? What's his name? So if I go to Matty's house at 3 o'clock in the morning and I put a gun to his head and said, why you? Right? And if the answer wasn't good enough, Matty would be dead. And put up your hand if that sounds pretty extreme. It's a real thing. Put up your hand if it sounds extreme. Does. You know why it sounds extreme? Because he lives in Kirkuk. So like, let me give you the hot tip. So I was very, very lucky. I've been to Auschwitz and Birkenau in Poland, where in the 1930s, people were dragged out onto the street and put a gun to their head and said, why you? And if the answer wasn't good enough, bang, they were dead. It happened in the 50s in Korea. It happened in the 70s in Vietnam and also in Cambodia, where Pol Pot killed 4.3 million of his own people. And I go to the killing fields every year and watch where people were killed and they ran out of bullets, so they would just smash their head against trees. Right? So like when I say that, it sounds extreme to us sitting in the northern beaches, in an RSL, in a beautiful life, and we all think how tough times are, interest rates went up, oh my God. We all sit there and we think like that, right? But then it happened in Yugoslavia in the 1980s and 90s. That wasn't that long ago, was it? Yugoslavia? Bosnia, where the tanks came in and killed millions of people shooting at them and everybody got killed. It happened in Iraq, a war that probably shouldn't have even happened, but we did it. Happened in Afghanistan, which we lost that war. What a great use of Australian tax dollars money, wasn't it, right? So we lost that war, right? But you know what the worst part is? It happened about 8 seconds ago in Syria, where somebody put a gun to someone's head and said, why you? And if the answer wasn't good enough, bang, you're dead. So like the reality is, we sit here tonight, we're very appreciative of Doyle Spillane and the team putting on this amazing event, but my challenge to you is this. Whether you like me or not, I really don't care. That's the reality. I really don't care if you like me or not, but I challenge you individually that I want you to get a piece of paper, not an iPad, not a mobile phone, not a laptop, a piece of paper, and I want you to get a pencil, a grey lead wood pencil. And I want you to go down to the beach, down at the northern beaches. I want you to go to the beach, or to the garden, or to the grass, or to the dirt. I want you to take your shoes off. That's what I want you to do. Whether you do this or not doesn't really affect me, but I promise you if you actually go and do this, it might actually change your life. It might actually put you in the right frame of mind to take on a little bit of an economic recession, a bit of an interest rate rise. And I promise you getting grounded back with the universe is going to change your life, because it has for me. And you're going to put your feet in the dirt, the sand, the water, whatever it is that's your kosher. And then what you do is I want you to get a pencil out on paper, and I want you to leave your phone at home or your technology, take off your iWatch and all that, leave that at home too. And I want you to write down why you, or why me, you might write. Sorry, put it in context. Why me? And I want you to write down as everything that comes out of you. I don't want you to think of it as a 30-second answer at 3 a.m. So my one, I worked with my business coach to be able to do that, and my life coach to be able to do that, to come up with Morello's 30-second answer at 3 a.m. Because I know that I needed to do the things that I needed to do to change the world around me, right? And so like, don't worry about, and if you don't have one, you can steal mine. And if you my email's not even there, shit, what did you do that for? If you just send me, it's one of those things, somebody will respond and send it to you if you need it, right, and the slides. My email's just morello@the-entourage.com.au, but the guys can give it to you if you like, and we'll send that out to you. But what I want you to do is I want you to write down your why you, your 30-second answer at the end. But if it goes for 6 pages, mine went for 8 pages the first one, 8 pages. right? So like then my life coach, she got it and she just ripped it apart. She's like, that's bullshit, what are you selling me? I said, I'm not selling you anything. It's my YU, a 30-second answer, my 3M answer. She goes, stop writing it as if somebody else is going to read it. Very true, wasn't she? She's like, you know, you live your whole life, you're on stage, you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. You're doing things because you're worried about what other people are going to think. I was like, she goes, remove your ego, let go of the outcome, embrace the uncertainty. And so we found out Morello's 30-second answer is this. Actually, who wants to know my 30-second answer at 3 a.m.? Great, we're in the right room there. So Andrew Morello's 30-second answer at 3 a.m. is this. Andrew Morello wants to make lots and lots of money. At this point, you're like, that's terrible. Let me finish it, right? So Andrew Morello wants to make lots and lots of money, to pay other people really, really well, to do the things that he doesn't want to do, so he can do more things he loves doing with the people that he loves. Good enough answer?
Yeah, nice.
Like when your interest rates go up, when you think about when you pay your land tax bill, don't even get me started on land tax, when you pay your land tax bill and you're about to have an angina attack or whatever, it's some sort of attack, like you think to yourself, you go, shit, what am I doing this for? Go back to the basics. Go back to when your feet were in the water, in the sand, in the dirt, in the grass, and remember, Andrew Morello wants to make lots and lots of money to pay other people really, really well to do things he doesn't want to do, so he can do more things he loves doing with the people that he loves. My mother died on her deathbed during COVID. We had 12 people at the funeral. 12 people at her funeral. Guess how many we had on Zoom? We literally had 3,500 people at my mother's funeral on Zoom. 3,500. That's the kind of woman she was. That's the kind of woman my mother. She was a queen. She was, and I saw my dad on the deathbed holding my mum's hand, begging with God to hand all the money back to spend more time with his wife. All the money, all the properties, all the service stations, all the factories, all the houses, wanted to give it all back to spend more time with his wife. So I made a decision at that point. I said, Father, you taught me what to do and also what not to do. You taught me to be a man of morals. You taught me to be a man of ethics. You taught me to be a man that helps other people, no matter what. My dad gave people Jehovah's Witness, Asian, Muslims, Jews, everyone worked for our family. We had 50 plus staff. My father, the lunchroom was full of different cultures and different tastes and different smells and everything. And my father, he created this beautiful environment where he goes, judge a man. You can judge a man. I said, Dad, you can't judge a man. He goes, you judge a man by how hard he works. That's what my father taught me. But he also taught me what not to do. And he taught me, he wasn't there for the Brunswick Zebras games. He wasn't there for the Melbourne cricket games. He wasn't there for the AFL St. Bernard's games. And I made a decision at that point that Andrew Morello was going to make lots and lots of money to pay other people really, really well to do things he doesn't want to do so he can do more things he loves doing with the people that he loves. My name's Andrew Morello, but most of all, I'm living the dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Well done. We enjoyed that? Got something out of that? We always do every time we see you present. It's always...
I feel like they've seen me too many times.
And it always changes too. It's not the same. It's like, you know. No, awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, pleasure to have you here tonight, and we're honoured to have you here. So amazing.
Stick around as well. Do you want to do questions or do you want to?
Yeah, like, is there any questions? Yep. Do we have any questions?
Take a couple of questions, and then we'll do the raffle.
Anything?
I'll stick around afterwards.
Yep.
Then I want to ask me. You can ask me anything. Anything. What raffle number should you have? You should have 810 because that's what I got. Has anyone got any questions? Anything at all? You can ask me anything.
No, but I do have a question.
Right.
Oh, it's actually a story that I heard you tell about a woman's perfume.
Yes.
Can you tell the... Because I reckon that was amazing. When I heard that, I thought that was the most amazing thing. I've tried to replicate it. Doesn't work.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but anyway, I'll tell the story. So my little superpower is so when I was in real estate full time at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, so I said I did over 1,000 transactions. I was sort of used to gross commission, even at that age, sort of $1 million to $2 million a year in gross commission. I would do anywhere between 72 to 115 transactions a year. So I always had two PAs. I had a male PA and a female PA. And part of their bonus structure, because I realised that people don't necessarily just need money. Like I realised in life, people actually prefer things that they can touch and feel. Money's good, but I used to get them something a bit extra. If they were older than me, both my assistants were in their late 20s, I was 18, 19, 20. And so I'd take them shopping once a month to Myers at Melbourne, down in Melbourne. It's also called the High Point. It's also called Knife Point, right? It's a dangerous area. Not anymore, but when I grew up, it was pretty dangerous. And in my, we'd go in there and I'd take Julia Murphy, my PA back then, I'd take her to go pick a perfume, and I'd sit in, don't judge me, by the way, practice non-judgment, guys. So just a bit of fun, and I'm straight, there's nothing wrong if I wasn't, but I would go and get the girls in MAC makeup to do my makeup, just as a bit of fun, while Julia would go and pick either makeup or a perfume, and then Jason Mantello, my other PA, would go and do, so I had a buyer's agent and I had a prospector. I ended up having 3 at one point, and then I had a vendor manager, which I think you guys run still. It's called an effective business unit, right? So that's how you write sort of $1 million, $2 million a year. So anyway, she would go and pick a perfume, and then he would go and pick perfume or a pipe in or a tie, rada. So what I would do is Brian, hello Brian. So Brian would, I'm still mates with Brian would go and he'd watch me getting my makeup done, he'd run over like, hello, Brian. And he'd be like, and he was the general manager for a fragrance at Myer in High Point. And I said to him, I said, Brian, give me the top 5 selling perfumes that women are wearing right now. Like once a month, I'd go in and he'd bring over and he'd spray it and go, this is Narcis Rodriguez, this was Coco Chanel Mademoiselle, this is, Chanel. That is he's one of my favourites. He's one of my favourites. This is Gucci Rush for women. So I would remember him. Because in life, the most nostalgic of the senses is not sight, is not, taste. The most nostalgic of the senses is smell. So when I smell a good knuckly done, a sauce getting cooked, it reminds me of my mother. Right? Like, I used to be able to smell it from 2 doors down. Like I'd be driving home from school, right? I could smell my mother, so she'd cook it for 24 hours on the stove and so forth. So I always remember the perfumes. And obviously, appropriately, but like Maddie and the sales team obviously go to people's houses, and I was in an area where majority of the time, not in a misogynistic way, but the women would be home, not the men. So the women would call you, we're selling our home, then I'd go in at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, meet the wife. She'd put on a whole kit and caboodle, it was great, like coffee, muffins, cookies, everything. As you can see, I had plenty of cookies and muffins. And then, but the husband wouldn't be there. Now, you gotta understand, right, this is no misogyny here, this is just understanding the psychology of people. This is what we call sociology, if you want to start researching things, understanding how the human brain works. So I understood that most of these women that were in these marriages, they've got 3 kids now, the kids get home from school, from soccer, from footy, they kick their boots off, throw mud all over the house, the mum's been cooking all day. It's not a misogyny thing, this is just my experience from door knocking 10,000 doors, right? Please do not, my sister's the matriarch of my family, my mother was my matriarch, my baby mama is my queen, she gave birth to my son, I put her on a pedestal, she can have anything in the world that she wants because what she went through to give me my son, right? So I'm not putting anyone down, this is facts. This is psychology, sociology facts. At 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, in the northern western suburbs of Melbourne, there are predominantly women home. So I would go and do these appointments and I'd walk in the door. Now, their husbands don't talk to them anymore. They watch replays of the AFL football game they watched on Saturday already. They watch it again on Tuesday night. She waited all night for me to have dinner with him, but didn't even pay any attention to her. And he'd take his plate and go sit at in front of the plasma and go watch the footy again. Right? The kids would run in, they'd grab their plate that she cooked all day for, and gone and picked them up from soccer and ballet and all that. And now where are the kids? They went to where? The computer room or the TV as well. So I realised that here's a woman who, I walked in the door, something that is very important to her was, the scent that she wore. You said it's the best one, Coco Chanel Mademoiselle, right? So I'd walk in the door. And the first thing I do is always take off my shoes, make sure as a real estate agent you don't have holes in your socks. Sometimes I get it, so don't have holes in your socks. And I'd walk in, and I've been into 10,000 doors, guys. So this is I've done a PhD, not literally at a university, I've done a PhD in sociology and people's human behaviour in their home, in their lounge rooms, right? So I walk in and she's told to join up. because like the husband pays no attention, the kids pay no attention. She's got the coffee going. She's got pea brewed. She's got cookies, muffins. She's got the, you know, the vanilla scented candles from dusk going, right? Like, she's got everything, man. And you walk in, and the first thing I do is I mean, are you wearing Coco Chanel Mademoiselle? And they would lose it. Lose it. They'd be like, how do you know that? I said, oh, it actually is my sister's favourite. I'd say, oh, it's my sister's favourite. And she'd be like, oh my God. Then I'd walk in the door, and the next thing I'd notice her, I'd be like, is that you on your wedding day? And she's like, yes. I'm like, is that a Vera Wang inspired wedding dress? And she's like, oh my God. She's like, my husband thought Vera Wang was a lady from Chinatown. Right? So, and then I'd walk in the room, the next part, and I'd be like, is that Calcutta marble finishings in the bathroom and the kitchen? And she'd be like, oh my God, yes, we waited 9 weeks for that. And is it the French provincial Millet appliances? And she'd be like, yes, I waited 12 weeks for that when we renovated. Now what I've done there is I've understood, not in a manipulative way, but rather in a, what does it cost us as human beings to acknowledge the small things with people? What does it cost us? It costs us nothing. But we live in this world now where nobody takes the time to understand the romance. Madam, you laughed when I said it before, but the romance and the beauty, like the romance of signing a contract with a Mont Blanc and a guy who's busted his ass 5 days a week working for someone else as a tradie, and then he does Saturdays and Sundays on his own ABN to get extra money so he can buy a house, and then he's finally, for the first time in his life, holding a Mont Blanc pen. He's never going to hold a Mont Blanc pen. He's probably going to make more money than me anyway one day, but he's never going to hold a Mont Blanc pen again in his life. So how much does it cost me to just stop and appreciate the beauty and the romance and the small things? The smell of a woman, the scent of a woman, the touch of a Mont Blanc pen, the beauty of a certain paint that somebody's chosen, or a piece of art that somebody's done. Like, it doesn't cost anything, guys. But as human beings, we've forgotten that. We feel uncomfortable. We don't want to go up to, how many of you went up to a stranger tonight and introduced yourself? Like, we don't want to do that because we have lost, you guys did. Oh, beautiful, I love that. But we don't do it enough anymore as human beings. And what did COVID do? COVID even removed it more. So like, I can't stress it anymore, and I feel like crying because it breaks my heart to just see the fact that as human beings, we just don't give the love, the time, the respect, the pause to just enjoy that moment and remember the beautiful smell of a woman or a beautiful scent of a fragrance, or maybe the look of a flower, or something that's taken someone so much time, and just appreciate the beauty in the small things.
Making me think about really making me think about appreciation, appreciating each other.
Yeah.
And I think most women here would relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And it just brings tears to your eyes, doesn't it?
It does.
Whenever anyone goes to that much trouble. And I guess sometimes men do too, and they also need to feel appreciated.
Of course.
Do you think more, if we did more of that between each other, do you think from a male perspective, maybe I could ask, do you think if men felt more appreciated too and we had that kind of interaction, that men wouldn't be necessarily watching a rerun of the AFL?
100%.
Both ways, you know what I mean?
100%. I think you've made a very valid point there. Like, I think it runs both ways. I think men sometimes they do a lot more learning than women. I think naturally, God has blessed, God or nature, Allah, Buddha, whoever you go for, whichever ten you go for. I think women intuitively have a lot more empathy naturally by nature. And I had a very empathetic mother who had a very tough life. And she is the person I am, the reason I am today. Like, my dad and I have become friends now. But certainly, I think just as human beings, right? I think I'm getting rushed off. But hopefully that was useful, guys. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. I'm going to stick around. If you want to come out of the chat, I'm going to stick around as well. I'm going to pull.
You're going to pull the tickets out.
Okay. I've got a ticket. So should I give my ticket away? I'll give it to you here. I don't think I'm allowed to win. I think I'm allowed to win, right?
I think I've got a ticket here too.
All right. First up we have a drip dry, Jerry. A drip dry. Drip dry showers. Sandy and Liz, are they here?
Yep.
Yeah?
Sandy's there.
Is your motto a drip dry, Jerry? A drip dry? Does everyone know where that, put up your hand if you know where that's from? It's from, you don't know where it's from? Your company's called Drip Dry, you don't know where it's from? It's from bloody, show me the money, Jerry. Show me the money, what's it called? Jerry Maguire. Like he walks out of the shower and he's like, bro, put a towel on. He's like, I drip dry, Jerry, I drip dry. All right, we got a $750 voucher. Wow, that's great. Thank you. For shower regrouting by Drip Dry Jerry Showers. No, Jerry, just Drip Dry Showers. First prize, okay, here we go. You might need it, here we go. We got yellow D19. Yellow D19. Yellow, you got to be in the room to win. Is that you, madam?
I can't buy my ticket, but
Do we have any other competitors? Does anyone else think they're yellow D19? Well, if there's no other competitors, you can win that, madam. Congratulations. Big round of applause there, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. Next up, what have we got?
What do you got next one? Oh,
we got two.
Another one, yep.
All right, another. No, you're going to go broke, bro. Another $750 voucher. We need to talk about business, guys. I got Blue B09. Blue B09. Blue B09, $750 voucher. Is that you? Come on down. Come on down. There we go. I'll let you give that one.
Oh, yep.
What do we got next?
Now you've got to buy a property.
Doyle Spillane, the secret box. Red A10.
A10!
There we go, come on. Hold on. There we go, that's yours. No, look, I knew I was going to win. I always win everything. It's bad. It's actually bad being winning all the time. Another Doyle Spillane box. Was that the better box, don't you? I feel like that was the better box. Is this your birthday? Your birthday? Green C12. Green C12. Come on down. Come on down. You can go hand it over to her. Congratulations, Green C12. Next one. Who's this from? This is from Performance Plus Plumbing. Anthony, you here? Where's Anthony? Thanks, Anthony, for your donation. Green C13. Green C13. Green C13 on the nose. Is that you? No. Green C13. Green C13.
No green.
Green
Redraw.
C13.
Redraw.
Got another one. Green
Oh,
C.
yeah. Where?
Green C13.
Debs.
Great. Go over there. Done. Take that one. The next one I got green C11. Green C11. Green C11.
Oh, like.
There we go. Again. Can't win two.
Yeah, well, Ross, one for Ross, one for Alana.
You're lucky. I'll take you straight to the casino after this. Who's this from? Property Insurance Plus. Is that you guys?
Brad.
Brad? Thanks, Brad. Give Brad a round of applause, guys. Thanks, Brad. Woo! Yellow D08. Yellow D08. Yellow D08. Is that
Gary.
you, sir?
Gary.
Gary?
Oh,
Go,
it was
Gary,
Audrey's,
go.
wasn't it?
Good. Nice, very good. What else have we got? I want to do humidifier. I actually need that in Rose Bay. It's the worst, man. Blue B11. Blue B11. There we go, nice. Congratulations.
Oh, lucky.
Well done, mate. What do we got? Humidifier from the Mole Doctor. Thank you. Can I get one of those, please? I can do it on my Instagram and stuff. We'll do a sponsorship deal. Yellow D03. The yellows have gone well. Yellow D03. Yellow's D03. This is a good one, guys. Find your ticket. Yellow D03. I'm about to redraw it. Andrew Morello. No, okay. Red A07. Red A0. This is a really good prize, guys. I lost my ticket. Did you really or not?
No, he's got the ticket. Yeah.
He's got his ticket. All right, big round of applause. Well done.
Fair.
Avalon Painting. Alessandro. Did you? I trust you, mate. If you lie to me, you can't lie. No one lies to me. Trust me. Look at that face. You can't lie to a face like this. Green C04. Green C04, come on down. What are these? Oh, I like this one too. I want to win this. I will help this person drink it. My God, what is with the yellow D's? Yellow D11. Yellow D11.
Ella?
Okay, all right, that will bring your hand down. Thank you very much, madam. Yellow D11, fantastic. Beautiful, what's your name, madam? No, beautiful lady there. She just got her bathroom redone, so she doesn't need it. She's offering it to somebody else, which is good. That's a good thing. Yellow D04. Yellow D04. No, that's you, madam. There we go. Fantastic. Take it over. What are these? Yep. Last one, guys. Did we end up deciding?
Yeah.
There's a bit of money for charity.
If you can, if you want.
You happy with one month?
Sure.
Okay, great. Yellow D05. Yellow. I probably should mix these up a little bit better. Fantastic. Guys, I've got one last surprise item. So you saw before I did the Kokoda Trail for a thing called Seed Foundation Australia. I sit on the board, I was one of the founding members. It's for Indigenous education, so it's not my charities in Cambodia, so it's for Australian Indigenous kids. We basically put them through Certificate 2, a Certificate 3 health education, then money offered me to University TAFE. The guys from Doyle Spillane, in particular Joe, have donated 1 month's free letting. So you put up there if you're an existing landlord in the room. Existing landlord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, great, plenty of existing landlords. So you can go for $1 or you can go for $10,000. It's a donation directly to Seed Foundation Australia. You will get a tax deductible donation. You are only receiving, you're not receiving a gift. It is solely a donation. Where's my tax? Where's TAS? It is a donation only directly to the charity, so it's not going to go through Doyle Spillane. But then Joe's just going to give you 1 month's free letting management fee for life, not for the sake of it, not for life, for just being good people, But just for my charity, we're going to auction off, we'll kick it off at $1. I don't know where we start, it's where we finish the counts. What can I say for an opening bid, for a donation, for Seed Foundation Australia, for Indigenous education? Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed my story, here's your opportunity to give back to some of my charitable works. Opening bid. $50 is a good start, madam. At $50 now, good and fairly bid. At $50, $100 now at the back of the room. At $100 on fairly bid now. At $100 good and fairly bid at the back of the room, madam. Make it $150 if you like. You got the smile. I'm sure you still got the money. At $100 now, good and fairly bid. I'll call it. First call at $100. If you're a landlord, you are going to get a month's management free. $300 now. At $300 and good and fairly bid. At $300 on the left-hand side. Some will make it $325 or $350. I don't mind. At $300 and good and fairly bid, and I'll call it. First call at $300. Second call at $300. $1,000. $350. Don't do that, mate. I'm an auctioneer. I'll take that as $1,000. You know that. At $350 now from Joe. At $350 now and good and fairly bid. First call at $350. Second call at $350. Third final call at $350. Of course, what's that, man? 400. You know what? Why don't we do this? You match the 400, you match the 400, it's 800 for charity. Yep?
I'm good, yep.
Sold for 400, sold for 400. Thank you very much, madam. $800 towards Indigenous education. Please check it out, guys. Seed Foundation Australia. I did the Kokoda Trail for it. You guys got to have some wine and food. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Beautiful. I'll pass you back over to Charlie. And Matt, for any final comments.
Say thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, everybody, for giving up your Wednesday night to come and listen to Andrew and some great inspiration, some great information as well. We're going to stay around for a little while if you want to chat to any of the team. We'd love to connect with you. Thank you again. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we're here if you need us.